The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome back to the final session here today at Join Digital episode 2, which is understanding multi-touch attribution and how to use it for profitable change. So I'm joined for this session by Gabby Schneider. She's our lead consultant in North America, and I know this is a key area for all marketing departments attempting to not just prove ROI, but to also optimize the customer journey. So before we start, a quick reminder to the live viewers that you can post questions to Gabby throughout this presentation using the questions box on the GoToWebinar technology. Please do post questions. We will get to those at the end of the session. And of course, in about 30 minutes from now, the agenda for episode 3 of Join Digital next week on May the 6th will be live. So please do go and register for next week, where we'll have 4 more fantastic learning sessions for you. Okay, so I'm going to now pass over to Gabby. She's going to be presenting to you how to understand multi-touch attribution and how to use it for profitable chains. Over to you, Gabby. The reins are yours.
Thanks, Anthony. Perfect. So as marketers, I think we spend a lot of time talking about cross-channel customer journeys, personalization, and how to optimize the customer experience. Measurement of those efforts, though, and ultimately how we attribute revenue or even other metrics such as lifetime value and customer satisfaction back to our marketing activities is really key to that optimization process. Understanding what channels, creatives, and tactics are reaching the audience and driving the intended outcomes, as well as what marketing strategies are providing ROI and what strategies are not delivering the expected results, provides us with the data needed to back up our strategic decisions. We all know that when we have data to back up our strategies, we can more easily justify shifting marketing spend to that strategy. But on the flip side of that, when analysis shows that there are campaigns that are less effective, it's a chance for us to consider the why. Is it the channel? Is it the offer? Are there small changes that could make the touch point more effective? Or is it better to move marketing spend away from it entirely? I think the answers to these questions won't be the same every time. Just like with any set of analysis, one question may lead to another, but it starts with having the ability to first ask the question, what campaigns are most effective? Ultimately, this understanding ensures we're promoting the journey steps that optimize the cross-channel customer experience and removing or even improving the steps that are not. Now, I know that the importance of measurement isn't new to any of you. In fact, most marketers who I speak with rank it near the top of their priority lists. And Gartner talks about the effective measurement taking a number of different forms. This can include things like marketing mix analysis, holdout analysis, and also what we're going to focus on today with multi-touch attribution. All of these marketing strategies can play a role in the overall measurement and optimization of our marketing activities, channels, strategies, and tactics, but they provide insight in different forms and across different time periods. So in simplest terms, attribution modeling really provides us with a framework for analyzing which communications or marketing channels receive credit for a conversion. And it's the model that's used for analysis that ultimately determines what weight is applied to each campaign throughout the customer journey and how we're analyzing all of this information. The reality is, though, that while it may seem like a simple framework, attribution isn't always that easy. Our buying journeys are complex. Customers interact with you in online and offline channels over the course of hours, days, weeks, or for some brands, even years. And these journeys don't always follow a straight line. They may interact with you in a number of different ways before they ultimately make a purchase or convert in the way that you're looking for. And there are other factors that can also pose a challenge. Things like purchase frequency can change the way you measure attribution. If you're an insurance company with an annual renewal product, then the most effective way to measure attribution is going to be very different than a retailer selling consumable goods or clothing. The other thing is product range can present a challenge. Your volume of products, upsell, cross-sell, nuances within your overall consumer life cycle also impact how you measure attribution and how you need to combine the models in order to understand the full picture of what you're looking at. Now, many marketing channels have tried to solve this attribution challenge through channel-specific attribution, but this generally isn't a perfect solution either, because the channels don't likely have access to data from other channels that would allow for multi-touch modeling. They rely on a single-touch attribution model. In an email world, this would be measuring what email was the last influencing campaign, but if a direct mail piece was sent out to the customer or a customer purchased in store, that email attribution is not going to provide the granular detail needed to properly measure your overall customer journey. And I think it's also worth considering here each channel's inherent bias towards claiming revenue for itself and the influence that can have in how the attribution reporting looks. In many ways, these are all factors that make attribution inherently difficult and also highlights why attribution needs to be customizable to measure success, and it should be unique to the organization or at the very least the vertical that you're in. This is why we find that black box attribution really doesn't work. You need the data that you're using to be the right data, and the success criteria may not always be revenue, or a black box model might not be able to account for the nuances within your specific business. So if we jump into the models themselves, I want to talk through 7 commonly used models that could be applied. While each model has its own advantages and limitations, it's about using the model or models that make the most sense for your business. Regardless of the model that's used, the goal is to measure which campaigns are driving conversions or outcomes that you're measuring. And I say outcome intentionally because I think it's worth noting that when we talk about attribution, it's not always revenue that we're looking for as our indicator. Campaigns aren't always directly going to influence revenue, but they can still be valuable. Things like campaigns that influence your customer experience or are an engagement tactic to capture feedback or customer recommendations. If you measure those campaigns designed to improve the experience or collect feedback only for their contribution to revenue, you potentially downplay their importance and their value. And in fact, they are playing a large role in terms of customer satisfaction. So we need to look at and evaluate those a little bit differently. So if we start then with our single touch attribution models, that's going to be our first touch and our last touch attribution. In first touch attribution, any matching conversion is going to be attributed to the first qualifying campaign received by that individual or the first time you see them. This can be very useful when you're trying to understand what initially started the customer journey and what is bringing customers to your brand first. As an example, I might be an offsite influencer or a blog providing the customer with a lot of information through a review or a recommendation, and that serves as a starting point for finding out a lot about a product, but this isn't often the last click before someone ultimately makes a purchase. The blog or the influencer recommendation could be delivering you huge amounts of new acquisitions, but if you're only looking at it from a last activity or a last campaign before conversion, you're not going to necessarily give it the credit that it deserves, even though it's clearly a valuable and important part of the overall customer journey. So being able to look at things like this from a first touch perspective gives you additional insights into the overall impact. The other single touch attribution model that we talk about is last touch. With this, just like it sounds, any matching conversions will be attributed to the last qualifying campaign received by the individual, or the final contributing factor to that conversion, whatever that might be. For retailers with a shorter buying cycle, for example, consumable goods or clothing, like I mentioned earlier, last touch is frequently used. For these purchases, consumers generally aren't spending a lot of time researching. They're price sensitive, and it's about putting the right offer in front of them at the right time. Of course, we still want to know where these customers originally came from, but if these customers have been transacting with you for many years, that can start to become a bit less relevant. We want to understand what was the last touch that ultimately put the right offer in front of them. And this can become an effective way of measuring upsell and cross-sell and regular promotional forms to understand, where that right message and right timing was landing. It's also worth noting that this tends to be the simplest to implement and evaluate in terms of understanding the attribution of our campaigns. There is a trade-off, though, with single-touch attribution. Although it can be straightforward and relatively easy to implement, it ignores everything that happens inside of the first or last click. And those additional touch points can be just as important and influential, especially for brands with longer buying cycles, and ignoring it can skew the metrics of the customer journey or campaign and lead you to make changes that may negatively impact the customer experience rather than enhance it. That trade-off then is really why multi-touch attribution can be so valuable. While there's certainly value in knowing which campaign started the journey and which campaign was the last touch point before conversion, multi-touch models allow you to place different weights on all of the campaigns and touch points throughout the overall journey. For example, if I look at auto insurance again, unless I buy a new car that year, it's a one-time purchase, and insurance companies have a limited window of time when I'll renew or make a switch. This doesn't, however, mean that they're only sending me one campaign a year. Throughout the year, my current provider is sending me campaigns to continue the customer experience, cross-sell other insurance products, or build brand loyalty. And competitors may also send me the occasional offer throughout the year so that when it comes time for renewal, that seed of doubt's already been planted. I might consider shopping around. Understanding then all of these campaigns is where, as a marketer, I may want to use a combination of these multi-touch attribution models. So if we look at linear attribution, the first of the multi-touch models here, this is pretty straightforward. Any matching purchase is going to be equally split between all of our qualifying campaigns. You solve for the first challenge of a single touch model here, applying revenue to or any other metric to any of our campaigns that the individual has received. But this provides you a more robust picture and allows you to show that it's not just a single touch point that led to conversion. Trade-off here being that because you're applying an equal weight across all of your campaigns, it makes it a bit more difficult to identify which campaigns are most effective. With our position multi-touch, this looks a bit different. We're weighting the first and the last touch points evenly, splitting the revenue tied between those two touch points and applying less revenue to the touch points in between. This model generally works well when you have multiple touch points prior to a conversion. You want to take into account all of the communications, but place more emphasis on ultimately what started the conversation and what led to that final conversion piece. Similarly, we have first and last positioned. With this, we're going to split it 50% on the first touch and 50% on the last touch. And this allows you to combine the benefits of the two single touch attribution models, understanding what kicked off the conversation and what led to conversion. But similar to the trade-off with those single touch attribution models, we're ignoring what's happening in between. And this one's more likely to be used in conjunction with other models as opposed to a standalone model by itself. The other two models I want to hit on here are time growth and time decay. With time growth, the heaviest weights applied to the first communication received, and any subsequent communications are weighted less heavily. This is useful when you're trying to place the most emphasis on the beginning of the customer journey, understanding that acquisition piece, but still want to be able to look at the full set of communications that led ultimately to the conversion itself. And the flip of that then being time decay. With this, the communications closer to conversion will receive the most weight, with the last touch receiving the greatest weight. If relationship building is a big factor in your business, using time decay attribution can be a helpful way to account for that. While it places less emphasis on the top of the funnel marketing techniques, it can be useful when we're looking at how relationships build over time in things like B2B sales, where there may be a long process in between pulling all of these different pieces together before ultimately we have a conversion. So then, how do I figure out what models to use in what situation? Each model can play a role in analysis, and the benefits of one may be the trade-off of another. With that in mind, rather than restricting ourselves to the use of a single attribution model per campaign or customer journey element, we can start to deploy these as overlapping attribution algorithms across multiple campaigns, multiple journey elements. And this provides us with the flexibility to use the model or combination of models that best meets our business needs, and also ensures that we can analyze our business and marketing effectiveness across different models in one view, spotting patterns that you may miss if you only look at it from the viewpoint of one single attribution model. The other piece of it then that we can take into account is the ability to customize these models. I talked about it not always being revenue that we're looking for as an outcome, depending on the type of campaign that we're building out here. So the ability to define what is that desired outcome, what's the value associated with it as part of the overall attribution set, gives control to the marketer in what they're measuring and what we're measuring against to, again, ensure that the models are providing back useful information to us. We're understanding the full picture, and it's not discrediting things that may not be tied directly back to the revenue piece. And I think then the final piece here is that same level of flexibility can be included when considering time parameters of attribution. How long after a communication is sent do we want to attribute any type of conversion back to it? Enabling you to granularly configure the timeframes used by models as well as campaigns gives that flexibility and customization to ensure that all of these models are meeting our individual needs. So regardless then of whether your organization has a lot of experience with attribution or you're just starting out, the flexibility to overlap different models makes it easy to derive insights that can be used to further optimize the journey. So with that, Anthony, I'll pass it back to you, and if there's any questions that we can take.
Fantastic. Yes, thanks, Gabby. Very useful. Nice to get a better look at some of those common attribution models. Am I right in saying that all these models are also available in the BlueVenn customer data platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these models, as well as the ability to customize them to meet the needs of the business, are all part of the overall solution.
Okay, thanks. And I would say that BlueVenn is not alone in introducing attribution. What I would say is that your attribution must be powered by all the data. And that's really why it makes sense to run attribution analysis or journey analytics on top of, or in fact within a CDP solution. So yeah, great. Okay, let me just have a check for questions. Okay, I'll pick I don't know if you can see them, Gabby. I've picked the third one down. How does attribution fit in with my other efforts to measure marketing effectiveness?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So as I said earlier, attribution, I think, is just part of measuring the overall effectiveness. I think for most marketers, they're looking at measuring things in a number of different ways to try to get the full picture, whether that be looking at specific KPIs on a campaign, looking at the larger picture through things like marketing mix, and then things like attribution as part of that overall picture. And I think where attribution really plays a role is looking at the individual events against a goal. So understanding that ongoing measurement more frequently, that can be daily, weekly, in conjunction with all of your other marketing measurement efforts, is really where it can fit into the overall mix.
Okay, thanks, Gabby. Just scrolling through, so I'll take the second one down. How does attribution within a customer data platform differ from using attribution in my marketing channel?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things here. You were just saying the ability to layer all of these pieces together in one place, have those views and those insights from the data. Leveraging your CDP for attribution removes some of those inherent channel-specific biases. It removes that siloed view of the attribution and allows you to see the complete picture across all of your channels and understand the full breadth of your attribution overall within the channels themselves. And I think that can be really valuable.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to close up the session now. There's one question we'll need to get back to, so we'll do that after the session. Maybe I can email that to you, Gabby, and you can answer that personally back to the attendee there.
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, well, that's the end of Join Digital episode 2 today. So we've had 4 sessions today. I'm thankful to everyone who's taken part and who's joined us today. Thank you to Gabby as well. And thirdly, because you always get missed, if you're watching this on demand right now, a special thank you to you as well. If you've enjoyed any of the sessions you've seen today, or even last week as well, I have seen some people who've managed to attend pretty much every session over the last week or so. Then you can register and sign up for episode 3. That is happening next Wednesday on May the 6th. Same time, same format, 4 sessions again. And of course, please share all the content with your colleagues and friends. I've just had a message to say that the agenda for episode 3 is actually now live on the website. So you can actually right now go to www.bluevenn.com/join, and you'll be able to check out the agenda in full detail and register for next week. I would also say that all the sessions from today, they are going to be available on demand this Friday. So that's on May the 1st. We'll alert you by email when they are ready, and you'll be able to go and watch these. So if you missed anything earlier, then you can go back and watch those at your leisure. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, evening, or morning, wherever you're logging in from. I can see we've got people from Australia, the US, from France, the UK, Germany, Norway. So yeah, South America. So yeah, great. So lots of people from everywhere. So yeah, really hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you for Join Digital episode 3 next week. Thanks and goodbye.